Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
A European court has ruled that Uber is a transport company, not just an app, allowing people to communicate with rides. The firm says the decision won't affect operations in the UK. Well, our technology correspondent, Tom Cheshire, joins us. Now, what does this mean for Uber, Tom?
Well, like you say, in the UK, Uber says it won't make that much difference because it has always operated as a transport company here. It works like a private hire taxi app. What's different is that in many other markets around the world, it has a thing called Uber Pop or different names where it's a peer-to-peer network. So people who aren't licensed drivers can sign up as an Uber driver and people who want to can use their cars and be taken places. Now, the EU said that is not actually, Uber has always claimed that this is an information service. They just provide a platform where people meet and maybe offer each other a ride. The ECJ has actually said, well, no, come on, this is just a taxi app and you're going to be licensed as such. So it's another blow for Uber in what's been a pretty terrible year for them. 2017 has seen them hacked, a huge hack, lots of scandals over sexual harassment, infringing on competitors' rights, and the chief executive had to leave. So it's not been great for them, but it probably won't affect them in Europe so much. What's quite interesting, though, is how this affects other platform economies, platform companies like Airbnb, which does hotel lettings. Basically, Airbnb will say it's a platform, all it is a place for people to meet so they can swap homes, basically, for a bit of money. Hotels, traditional hotels, will say, actually, they should be licensed like hotels because they're providing the same sort of service. So that whole gig economy, that platform economy could be subtly changed by this shift. Another thing worth mentioning is that it's the ECJ saying they are a transport company. It's up to individual EU member states how to apply that law. So even if there is a change, we won't see it for a little bit longer.
Tom, for now, thank you.
Now, the European Court of Justice has ruled that ride-hailing firm Uber is officially a transport company and not some kind of digital service. Uber had previously argued they were a technology service enabling people to contact each other rather than a cab company. The European Court of Justice said Uber should be classified as a service in the field of transport.
Non-professional drivers who use their own vehicles with people who wish to travel in the city is fundamentally linked to a transportation service.
Uber say the verdict will make little difference to the way it operates in Europe, claiming it already works in accordance with transportation law. But for those affected by the rise of technology-based services like Uber, such as London's black taxis, this marks an important turning point.
Well, yeah, I suppose it's good news for everyone, really, that they're just being brought into line with everyone else.
I think it's the greatest decision. Get them to bloody have to do what we have to do.
The decision could have a knock-on effect for the rest of the so-called gig economy, as courts and regulators continue to wrestle or be outfoxed by new and disruptive businesses. Well, Andrzej Spicer is Professor of Organisational Behaviour at Cass Business School, and Benita Matowska is founder of The People Who Share, an organisation that helps people in business better understand the gig economy. Andrzej Spicer, why is this really important?
Well, it shows us that Uber is not a tech company, it's a transportation firm. So it means that all of the rules which apply to a transportation firm apply to Uber. This has broader implications beyond just Uber to things like the accommodation sector with Airbnb. I mean, frankly, it's ridiculous to call Uber a taxi firm. It's like calling your local minicab company a call centre.
But in Britain, they were regulated as a taxi firm anyway, aren't they?
Well, indeed, you have some regulations, but what this means is that the European-wide regulation, it's not kind of information society, it means that it's regulated then on a local level. So what we're likely to see is a patchwork. This one dominant monopoly, you're likely to get a patchwork of different companies.
And to many people, this is just a statement of the obvious. And claims from technology companies that they are some weird thing, when they're basically just selling us places to say, taxis, nothing. That this bubble has been popped.
Well, what we know, of course, is that the world is changing. How we live, how we work, how we play has never been in greater flux than it is now. And actually what concerns me about today's ruling is that, in fact, if you take a traditional approach to these new types of businesses that are more complex and nuanced, actually what you're doing is you're retrofitting.
But isn't the point that they're not new types of businesses? They are taxi companies and holiday companies and retailers. They're just doing the same things that traditional shops have done.
So fundamentally, if you argue, which has obviously been argued today, which could be argued, that Uber is in fact a transport company, how do you classify a company that, for example, delivers my dinner, helps me find someone to fix my leaky roof, and allows me to rent and borrow and swap and find the goods and services that I need? The point is that if we want to be fit for future, and we are entering a new economy where people are accessing goods and services in a completely different way that we had never previously imagined. Goods and services that we don't even have names for the next generation of these businesses. And actually, if what we're doing is applying these traditional approaches, then simply that doesn't take us into the future.
So I guess there is some necessity for a little bit of legal innovation, but I think that one of the biggest innovations we could say is, let's imagine these firms pay their taxes, apply to basic human rights, follow industry regulation. And what's going to happen in the next year is that many of the large tech firms are going to have to begin to act like normal firms. Uber, the company we're discussing, many of your viewers won't know, has been losing money hand over fist for the last 5 years or so. It's basically not a vehicle for people to get around. It's a vehicle for private equity, which is then going to be sold out. And the chomps who are the shareholders who are going to buy it are going to have to sort out the problem while private equity walk away with the profits.
I mean, obviously, if they were here, I'm sure they'd say they pay all the taxes they're legally obliged to pay. But the point is that this is an issue because they are seeking, it seems, to be not treated like ordinary retailers. You know, that they don't want to be regulated the same way, they don't want to obey the same rules, they don't want to have to fit into the same regimes. And that just annoys people because they think, they're just taking the mick.
Of course it does. And the part of the problem we have here is that there's so much confusion about what the sharing economy or the gig economy actually is. And ultimately, it's a whole societal system based around the sharing of human and physical resources. And it should benefit people and planet and the businesses themselves. There is no excuse for irresponsible business. And we have seen some unethical practices. And actually what's needed is appropriate regulation that is proportionate and relevant for this new age that we're entering.
I mean, the gig economy is talked about, a lot as if it's what the people who work in it want. Is it?
Well, most of the evidence suggests not the case. What it suggests is that most of the time people take up gig economy jobs when there's not much else on offer. And what's interesting is that there are a few areas where gig economy started, and it's being rolled out to many, many other kind of sectors. My sector, university sector. A large number of full-time faculty are now finding that they have kind of gig jobs. I'm not too sure whether many people would be interested in that. Perhaps we should see politicians having a gig economy job.
If you're worried about this as a consumer, what are you saying you should do? Stop using these services?
Well, Uber, we have to realise that Uber is enormously popular, but what most consumers want is proportionate regulation. They also want to see a bit of innovation, so I think that sometimes that's not necessarily going to come from bigger companies.
But it's important to know that we talk about appropriate regulation, but actually also I've spent the last year travelling around the world to better understand those that are working in the sharing economy, those that are benefiting from it, those that are using these services. And actually, overwhelmingly, our comprehensive research shows that over 90% of those who are working in the gig economy are very positive about a type of work and enabling people that have previously been marginalised by the labour force.
So they had no choice. You make the point for him, don't you? They had nothing else on offer.
It's not that they had no choice. Actually, they're choosing to work in a different way. But this is not work for everybody. It's not appropriate for everybody. It appeals to those who are micro-entrepreneurs, who want to take risks, who want essentially to have that flexibility to determine their lifestyle. So mothers are returning to work that may have childcare needs, for example. Those who may have disabilities, who have been disenfranchised by traditional working. This allows that flexibility, but of course it's not for everybody and it needs to be better understood. What's needed is greater education to clarify the issues, to better understand the sharing economy, and to ensure that we know and support the fact that we need to be creating that tripart value that benefits people and planet.
Benita Matowska and Andrzej Spicer, thank you both very much. John.